Well, hello there, guys. Today we're going to talk about food. That is the How to Grow series, specifically on how to grow using food. And this is the nutrition video you've all been waiting for. I don't know how long it's going to be. Hopefully, it's not too boring. But without further ado, you're watching Dr. Todd Lee TV, where theoretically you could learn a bunch of cool shit. So, I have tried to reformat this screen, and it is not working. And I have fixed it. Ha ha ha. I have managed to fix this. So, let's begin. You will realize that I cut through the shenanigans at the beginning. I find that people are not watching the videos simply because they don't like the shenanigans at the beginning. So I'll say it really quick. Warning, this is for entertainment purposes only. Do not do anything I tell you to do. This is not supposed to be educational. This is supposed to be entertainment. Just pretend this is stand-up comedy and that don't take anything I say seriously. Also, like, subscribe, and share this. I am a coach and I'm a medical doctor. I can help you, whether it's lifestyle, whether it's health, or whether it is getting ready for a show. In the description box, there is a link to get a hold of me. Please do so. Say hi. We have lots of fun here. So, without wasting any more of your time with this silly intro, I'm just going to get on with it. Food is important to grow. Food is more important to grow than anabolic steroids. This is the anabolic university. This is not steroid university. Food is the most anabolic thing you can do. People always say, like, oh man, how much muscle, how much weight am I going to put on by using D-ball for 5 weeks? It's like, I don't know how much you're going to eat because it's the food that makes you grow. That energy can either be created or destroyed. Basic thermodynamics, that you put food into the system and you exercise to get food out of the system. Look at food like it's a bank account. Look at calories like it's money. Why does somebody go broke? Why are they in debt? It's because they spend more than they earn. That's how you go into debt. That's the same thing with getting fat. Getting fat is when you burn less than you consume. It's that simple. Now, if the same person was to overeat, but they were lifting weights and then they theoretically would have stored all of that excess calories as muscle and not as fat. That carbohydrates only get stored in fat if there's a lack of glycogen somewhere else in the body, whether the liver is depleted on glycogen or the muscles are depleted on glycogen. If there's a vacancy, in other words, your fat cells are kind of like an overflow account. So there's a limit on an account. So let's say your liver is the first account. Once that liver is full of carbohydrates, then the glycogen will be synthesized in the muscle. Basically, the calories will go in the form of carb calories will go towards the muscle. And once the muscle accounts are full, that's when muscle will get carbs will get stored as fat. If there's a vacancy in the liver or in the muscles, carbs should not be stored as fat. And I say should not because there's a lot of mitigating circumstances on this. Ipso facto, if you're in a calorie surplus, meaning you're consuming more than you're burning, and you eat fat, fat will be stored as body fat. Fat does not go to the liver to make glycogen. Fat does not go to the muscle to make muscle. Is fat anabolic? This is a very confusing topic. Basically, the short answer is no. If you're injecting testosterone, you don't have to worry about having fat. That there's a rule of thumb that is 30% of your calories are from fat for optimal hormone production. Which hormones? They mean steroid sex hormones. They mean testosterone if you're a man. So, therefore, if you're injecting testosterone, you don't need to have 30% of your calories from fat. In fact, it's more like 15%. Now, is fat of use at all? There's essential fatty acids like EFA and DHA, which you would get from fish oil, or you could take fish oil capsules in the tune of 4 grams per day. Studies have shown this increases strength. Why does this increase strength? That's a topic for an entirely other video, but this is a simple video, a basic video on food and nutrition, mostly focused on calories. But I wanted to address where calories come from. Calories come from protein, carbs, and fat. So you should not be afraid of carbs because if you're training hard, you should have some vacancy somewhere in your body for those carbs to go. On the other hand, fat isn't going to grow muscle directly. It might be used for fuel in the sense that because the fat can push you into a calorie surplus if you simply cannot eat enough protein and carbs. Now, there is something to be said for 5 to 10 grams of fat per meal being helpful for digestion. That is a very complicated process. It's beyond the scope of this video to discuss it. It'll be likely in the future I might have Kurt on and we can talk about fat metabolism as a whole separate video, or carbohydrate metabolism is an entirely separate video. Every one of these sentences I say in this video could be a video all its own, and it will. But that's not the point of this video. This video is for the drivers like me, the bottom line thinkers. What do I need to know? Give me a formula to succeed. I don't give a fuck about the why. That's my personality type. I'm a driver. Analysts, they want to have all the information and they may never come to a decision. Someone who's a mix, I might be 75% driver, 25% analyst, whereas someone else might be 75% analyst, 25% driver. And you're like, what are these personality types? That's a topic for another video. But this is the left side of the Punnett square, and this is the traditionally masculine personality types that put logic above emotion. The feminine side of the personality square, where the emotional content is, we're not going to address that because that's not useful for succeeding at goals or anything. That those are good for social, but those aren't good for success. So bodybuilding is theoretically not social. It is a very physical and mental pursuit that involves discipline and exercise and mathematics and patience and determination. None of these things are social. So that's why I'm just not interested in discussing any of that stuff. So the point is that theoretically can help you digest your food. It can theoretically push you above calorie maintenance into calorie surplus, but it will not necessarily directly build muscle. People will argue with this. I know that Evan Sanapani said that fat's more important for carbs for growth. Maybe he's right. I just don't know of any science that supports that belief. Protein means most important. So why am I covering it last? Because everybody pretty much knows the protein component, that they know that they should have approximately 1 gram per pound body weight. The studies show that 1 gram per pound body weight is the most that can benefit you for growing tissue. However, more protein helps you recover from workouts. So if you could be eating 1 gram per pound and could be so sore that you only can hit a body part once a week. But if you were to go up to 1.5 grams per pound, like 300 grams of protein if you're 200 pounds, you could recover much faster and thus train more frequently and thus grow more muscle. So it's a lot of nuances where studies have proven this, but that's with blinders on. So they're not focusing on the big picture. It's kind of like the training to failure. Training to failure is better for one set. Yes, one set to failure is better than one set not to failure. But if you have 6 sets for that body part, training to failure is no longer better because you shoot your load on the first set and the other 5 sets kind of suck ass and you're neurologically CNS fatigued. It'll negatively affect the next workout. It'll negatively affect the next workout. It'll negatively affect the next workout. And this will result in you getting poor sleep and recovering poorly. And over the span of the entire mesocycle, that's 4 microcycles or a month, you will not grow as much muscle. So something can be right, but it isn't correct in the big picture. So I'm a big picture guy. I look at the whole forest. I don't focus on one tree. That a lot of these people, They will focus on one tree for 10 years and they know that one tree really good, but that doesn't fucking matter because what matters is the forest of 20,000 trees, not that one tree. That one set's fucking perfect. The whole rest of the workout's dog shit, not a productive. Same thing goes for food. So science is very slowly catching up with bro science. And that's been the case my entire bodybuilding career. I remember in medical school, we had this book, the physiology textbook called Guyton and Hall. It's the gold standard. It's like you've heard of Netter's Anatomy or Gray's Anatomy. They don't use Gray's Anatomy anymore in medical school, but they stopped like maybe 50 to 100 years ago. But that's how behind the public is on how far behind the science is. But anyway, that Guyton and Hall was the textbook of choice and for physiology. And it says, no one can increase their muscle mass by more than 30%. And I was like, this is fucking retarded. Like, there's people out there that have 300 pounds of muscle, like Ronnie Coleman. He obviously increased his muscle by more than 30%. What the fuck are they talking about? So I knew then that medical science was stupid because it's got its head so far up its own ass. It isn't able to perceive the outside world. There's an Indian physician, I think she's a pediatrician, told me frog in a well. And I was like, what does that mean? And she's like, Americans are like frogs in a well. That they think that they know the whole universe. They think they know everything because they know every square inch of the well that they're trapped in at the bottom. They don't understand that above the well, there's an entire world out there that is nothing like the inside of their well. And I was like, I love that expression. Nobody else will like it. I love it. That is the perfect expression for the medical community. So you will learn things and that medical textbooks will say about nutrition that are completely fucking wrong. And you will find that nutritionists or dietitians, registered dietitians, usually know nothing about how to lose fat. One of the biggest jokes ever was that in every hospital I ever worked at, every one of the registered dietitians was a fat woman unless she was like 22 and hadn't gotten pregnant yet. But most of the registered dietitians were fat women. And I was like, why the fuck is anyone listening to them? And the answer is they're not. When people get a nutrition, like the doctor doesn't tell the patient, don't eat sugar. He just gives them pills for diabetes or injections for diabetes and then sends them to a nutritionist. And the the obese person with diabetes sits down in front of this way fatter registered dietitian, and they're like, yeah, absolutely, vegetables, great, yeah, nope, no one ever got fat on fruit. You're totally right. And they're thinking, why the fuck would I take information from this fat bitch when she's fatter than me? Fuck, I'm never gonna listen to this idiot. If she knew anything about food, she wouldn't be fat. It's the same thing. It's like, do you get stock tips from homeless people? No. Then why would anyone listen to a fat dietitian? It is the stupidest fucking thing ever. So people will be like, wow, Todd's really angry on this rant. No, I'm trying to get the point across of using common sense and looking at the whole forest. I don't give a fuck how many diplomas somebody has. If they look like dog shit, don't listen to them about your health. Period. So that's moving on. So I've kind of covered calories, protein, carbs, and fat. I'm going to do it in a more structured bottom up way, right? I'm going to teach it to you like you taught in school. Calories are energy. 1 calorie or food calorie is a kilocalorie. 1 calorie is the amount of energy needed to bring 1 gram of water up 1 degree Celsius. You bored yet? Do you like the bottom way up teaching? I sure as fuck don't think you have. You probably heard this shit like 100 times and it went in one ear, not the other, because it's boring as fuck. No one likes bottom up teaching. No one likes to spend an entire class period on one tree and then entire class period on another tree, another class period on another tree. And your brain's supposed to assimilate a forest of that shit. It never works. So I'm going to teach you bodybuilding science, and it's bro science. Icky Vicky is going to roll over in his fat little grave when he hears this. But you get on the scale every day and you use an app or a spreadsheet and you track your weight. If you're not gaining a pound every 2 weeks, after 2 weeks you haven't gained 1 pound, then increase your calories 250 calories, typically in the way of adding 60 carbs. That's it. Eventually, you will start gaining weight. You want to grow about 2 pounds every month or 1 pound every 2 weeks. This is the way to grow muscle in absence of fat. If you do what everyone else says and go 50, 500 calories, if you over, like you're eating 3,000 calories and you're not growing, so you go up to 3,500 calories, you're going to gain muscle, but you're going to gain fat too. You're going to gain fat to muscle in a 2-to-1 ratio. That means in the span of a month, you gain 4 pounds. Basically, what is that going to be like? 2.6 pounds of fat and 1.3 pounds of muscle. Whereas if instead you gain 2 pounds a month, you'll probably gain 1 pound of fat and 1 pound of muscle. Now you're gonna be like, well, that means I'm growing muscle slower. It's like true, but when it comes, you will get to grow for longer before you have to turn around and cut. Because once your body fat gets above 15%, once you can't see your abs anymore, you're less likely to store calories as muscle and you're more likely to store calories as fat. Now, there's a recent, and so you end up shortening the span that you can grow. So, because you hit that 15% body fat and have to change direction, come down slow. Now, there's some scientists out there, even Dr. Mike Israetel, who says this isn't true anymore. Science has proven you actually continue to put on muscle after a certain point. But this is about looking at the whole forest. If you're a competitive bodybuilder and you're trying to get on stage and have paper thin skin, you can't stretch that shit out. You can't stretch out your skin getting up to 20% body fat. Your skin is the most overlooked part of bodybuilding. If you stretch out your skin, or if you use some giant ass hypodermic syringe and fuck up your fascia and give yourself a bunch of scar tissue, then when your skin's paper thin, you'll see a bunch of scar tissue there. You'll look like shit and you'll lose. So you don't use this needle, you use this one, and you do it every day. That's rather than doing this in your ass, because your ass is what you're graded on. If your ass isn't striated, you lose. You will lose. Someone like me will come along and beat you. I will be 50 pounds lighter than you. I will have a shredded ass. It'll look like cat whisper. It'll look like a cat took its claws and raked it across my ass and created these striations, and I will beat you. It doesn't matter if you're 50 pounds in cement, if you're 100 pounds bigger than me. I will beat you because I will have a shredded ass. So you do not use this needle in your ass because it'll destroy your striations. Likewise, you do not balloon up to 20% body fat. One of the other things Dr. Mike says is that he loses shows because he's always holding water. What that means to me is as he diets down, he loses fat from his fat cells, but he has so many fat cells, they fill up with water. If he stayed leaner, then when he dieted down, his fat cells would be less. So there'd be less water under the skin. So this idea that you're supposed to just get up to 20 pounds and just be some bloated, fat, flubbery mess so you can have droopy, stretched out, stretch mark covered skin that's probably all pimpled out and nasty, and then it holds a bunch of water and you look like a Shar when you pull water, that's ugly. And if you have don't do shit that makes you uglier if you're trying to win a hot body contest. Like, no shit. Girls aren't that dumb. Girls don't intentionally get fat because, oh, I could gain a little bit more muscle. They actually are worried, like, I don't want to get stretch marks. I don't want to get cellulite. I don't want to fuck up my skin because they're looking at the big picture. Girls are good at that. They look at the whole picture. So, big picture is do not get over 15 fucking percent body fat. If you start to lose your abs, it's time to cut, mini cut. Dr. John Jewett believes that you should do a maintenance phase. And then after you've held that weight and held that body fat for 3 weeks to 6 weeks, that's when you can mini cut. If you go from a growth phase right into a mini cut, you're going to lose most of your gains. I don't think Dr. Mike disagrees with this. It's just not part of his Renaissance periodization models. He hasn't accounted for it, but it doesn't mean he doesn't agree with it. And I want you to understand, I really, really like Dr. Mike. I'm not putting any digs on him. I'm not trying to put him down. I'm not saying I'm better than him. I just don't know if he's considered that part of the reason why he struggles with holding weight come show day is the drastic amount of fat loss. If he goes from 260 all the way down to 225 or something, that's 35 pounds. You lose 35 pounds, this ain't going to be paper thin. If you get up to 15% and come down to 5%, that's a 10% change. That should be about 20 pounds. That's a lot. And you wouldn't do it all at once. You get up to 15%, mini cut down to 10%, grow back up to 15%, cut down to 10%, grow back up to 15%, cut down to 10%, hold it, maybe do a mini holding phase where you refill your glycogen supplies and build up your strength again so you can break some PRs. And maybe you creep up to like a 10.5, 11% during that month. And then you cut down to maybe 6%. And then you hold it and you basically rebuild yourself, get your strength back up, replace all that lost muscle tissue by doing a holding phase. And then a third iteration of cutting, you bring yourself down from 6% to maybe 3%. That's how you hold muscle while you're cutting down. And I know this isn't a video about cutting, but big picture, you got to think of the whole thing. You don't focus on permabulking. You think, I have exactly, because this is the day of the show, and then this is how long I have to peak, and then this is how long I have to cut. Then I have to extend that to account for mistakes. Then there's this much to hold. Then that means that there's this much I can grow because I'm right here. You don't think, oh, the show's not for a year. I've got a whole year to grow. Fuck that. Work backwards and figure out exactly how long you have to grow. And you might want to put a holding phase in the middle there, or even a mini cut phase in the middle there. So you have 12 weeks, 4 weeks, 4 weeks, 12 weeks, 4 weeks, 12 weeks, 1 week, show day. Something like that. The macro cycle. Plan your life out. Don't just let shit happen to you. So people are like, I thought this is supposed to be a how to grow video. You spent 21 minutes saying nonsense. No, because it's literally down to one sentence that that's how to grow. You eat more food until you're growing a half a pound a week or 2 pounds a month. That's it. The protein's fixed. The protein doesn't change. Now, it doesn't matter what fucking phase you're in. If you're 200 pounds, you're eating 300 grams of protein. It doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter if your dog gets hit by a car. It doesn't matter if it's your daughter's wedding. It doesn't matter if you're skydiving. It doesn't matter if you're on vacation. You eat that 300 motherfucking grams of protein every fucking day. That is your job. Nothing else matters. If someone gets in your way, get rid of them. Get them out of your life. This is all that matters, is growing muscle. This is the hardest thing to do in the world. Growing 20 pounds of muscle would be like getting a medical degree or making $1 million. That's how hard growing muscle is. Now, maybe not if you're 15 and maybe not if you're 150 pounds, but if you're over 40 and you're already 200 pounds and you're shredded, to get 20 more pounds of muscle, you have an easier time making $1 million. So that being said, you eat that same amount of protein. You don't really need to worry about fat. And the carbs are the variable that matters, because 300 protein is about 1,200 calories. And if you're eating 3,000 calories, that means you're eating approximately 1,800 calories worth of carbs, which is 450. If you need to eat 3,500, then it's like 510 carbs. If you have to eat 4,200, that's like 750 carbs. You don't even, I'm not saying you don't worry about fat. Like if you're eating beef, not chicken, excuse me, if you're eating dark meat chicken, not white meat chicken, now you have to account for the fat in the meat. But if you're that poor, you can't afford chicken breast, you have to resort to using chicken thighs, you're too poor to be a bodybuilder. You need to worry about making money and then make bodybuilding a priority, or find a way to make money and do bodybuilding. Because, you know, food matters. I'm not a big fan of the organic shit because I don't trust it. All food is organic. All food is made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So all of it's organic chemistry. So the idea that there's organic food and inorganic food, it's not inorganic food. It's not made from silicon. It's not made out of carbon and fiber. It's made out of animal meat and vegetable matter. That's it. Personally, I've managed to make it work with just chicken breast, jasmine rice, peas, and carrots. That hits everything except for calcium and vitamin E. When I plug up my actual amounts are into Chronometer, my micros work out so that I'm getting everything except for calcium and I'm not getting enough vitamin E. So I take in the morning, I take D3 and K2. I take vitamin C in the morning. I take my telmisartan in the morning, which isn't I take my DAO inhibitor because if you watch the last video, the DAO inhibitor allows my liver, along with TUDCA and NAC and choline inositol, to work strongly enough to process all the food I need to eat. It's like steroids for your, or performance enhancing drugs rather, for your liver. So your liver can process all that food because that's a lot of food. 300 grams of protein from chicken comes out to being about 3 pounds of chicken a day. That's a lot of animal sacrifice. Now, I do include protein from other sources. I don't only count direct protein sources. I don't only, but all my fat is pretty much indirect. I do add some oil to some meals because it helps me digest that food better, and because it helps me hit my macros. Hits my total calorie amount. But if I was cutting, one of the first things to go is the fat. Now, if you really want to play it safe, you're going to eat like 50, 60 grams of fat a day if you're 200 pounds. That over 5 or 6 meals, that's 10 grams per meal. That's not a lot. I mean, that's not hard to do. If you're made of money and you can afford it, you could have like sirloin steak or you could have salmon. And if you're doing that, those are more nutritious sources of food because they have more micronutrients. They have stuff like creatine and CLA in the beef. It has, if it's organic beef, in that case, that's when I would go with grass-fed beef, is if I was going to have higher fat content beef, because all the benefits of the grass-fed over the grain-fed is located in the fat. And if you're not having any fat, if you're eating eye of round or filet, that's a very low fat steak, then the difference from organic to inorganic is virtually nothing. So if you're going to have salmon and grass-fed beef, you're going to get really, really good stuff as far as micronutrients and essential fatty acids and all that. When it comes to vegetables, you know, to me, vegetables are a source of fiber, they're a source of water, they're a source of micros, and during a cut, they're important for filling your stomach. But during a bulk, then you don't want to just occupy the limited amount of space in your stomach and intestines with something that isn't going to help you grow. Not really. I mean, a little bit, like an ounce of veggies with every meal will help digestion because there's some fiber there. Just like 5 to 10 grams of fat will help with digestion. If you had nothing but chicken breast and rice, it may not move through you as appropriately and digest as well as if you mixed in some vegetables and some dietary fats. Now, do I have studies that I've learned the difference? No, because they're not running studies on our population. They don't have studies on bodybuilders who are using anabolic steroids, growth hormone, and insulin. So none of those studies are valid for our population. In bodybuilding and in life, having a smaller waist is more important than having a big anything else. The smaller your waist looks, the bigger everything else looks. Like the joints, like having a small elbow makes your arm look big, having a small knee makes your quad look big, having a small waist makes your everything look big. So you don't want to stretch out your waist on a bunch of non-digestible food or food that gives you gas, like gluten or dairy or things like that. Although you might not think you're having problems with them, if you're burping or farting, you are not digesting all your food appropriately. And it's probably because you're eating man made food. Stop it. Natural foods like starches, vegetables, fruit, meat, that's what your body is designed to do. You know, whether you believe in a creator or whether you believe in evolution, that's what your body has developed or was developed to consume, not artificial foods. So you I mean, I don't know how to say it any other way. Basically, it's a math equation and it has to be recorded. You have to weigh your foods to know how much food you're eating. You have to have the appropriate macros calculated to come up with at least a total caloric amount, and the calories have to be in excess of your maintenance. And if you're not gaining weight, you have to increase your calories. It's that simple. Steps after every meal, improve insulin sensitivity. So you will, even though you're technically doing negative calories, by doing the steps, it'll help you digest your food so you'll be able to eat more in a day. Cardio is still important because it helps you get your heart strong, and that strong heart helps you get through your leg workouts. But you don't want to do so much cardio that it is taking away from leg recovery. I found for me, if I do 5 sessions of 40 minutes of cardio a week, it's going to take away from my leg recovery and I'm going to start going backwards. My legs are going to get smaller and weaker. If I do no cardio, my legs recover super fast, but I can't get through the leg workout because I'm out of breath. So I found for me what works best is about 3 sessions of 30 minutes of cardio, and I use the Cybex arc, and I want to vary the height on it so that it doesn't tax the tissue that much. So if I do the same exact mode of cardio at the same settings multiple times a week for months, eventually I'm going to start getting wear and tear on my joints, tendons, and maybe muscles. But if I vary it up, one thing I used to do is do 5 minutes, be like 20, 30 minutes on the treadmill, but I hop off the treadmill before my ankles start to hurt. Then I get on the bike and I pump up my quads, but I get off the bike before my knees start to hurt. Then I jump on the stairs and I go really on one of the slowest settings, like a 2 or a 3, and I squeeze my glute and my quad with every step to get a massive pump in my quads and my glute. But I get off the stairs before my hips hurt, because every one of those modalities will eventually wear my joints down. But if I rotate them, or I do 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 5 minutes here, or 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes here, or 20, 10, 5, then my joints don't notice what's happening to them. So and you're like, this is a lot for food. And I'm like, to me, steps and cardio are part of food, because food is a nutrient and calorie delivery mechanism. And calories, and what do you call it, cardio, is really mostly a calorie subtraction mechanism, and steps is a stress-free calorie subtraction mechanism. But the cardio will improve your appetite, and steps will improve your digestion, which improves your appetite. So you will make your waist smaller by having less internal pressure. I could do an entire video on waist size. I could do abs and waist size, including vacuums. That'll eventually be covered too. But the main thrust of this video, and I'm saying this over and over again for a reason, is calories. The calories in has to be greater than the calories out. I don't care what anyone else says. They're wrong. They clearly failed physics. They're not good at math. And every time you meet someone who's like, I don't, I am in a calorie deficit and I'm not losing weight, it's like they're not weighing their food. They don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They're idiots. Nobody who's actually measuring their food, every single fucking thing that goes in their mouth is accounted for. And they also do the same output every single day. Those people, if they're not losing weight and they may subtract a little bit more, whether they're adding negative calories with steps or cardio, or they're subtracting carbohydrates, or they're subtracting fat, they will lose weight. It will happen. Likewise, the opposite. If you are doing 10,000 steps a day and cardio 3 times a week for 30 minutes and no more output, and then you're consuming a fixed amount of protein, a fixed amount of carbs, and a fixed amount of fat every single day, and you increase your carbs by 50 a day, you should see a very, very slow increase. The problem is people want rapid changes because they're impatient. Grow the fuck up. You don't want rapid changes. You want quality changes, and you want them to stick. If you put on 5 pounds of muscle in a year, that's incredible. That's a fucking amazing feat. When do the pro bodybuilders ever gain 5 pounds of muscle year after year? Name one pro bodybuilder other than like Samson Dauda who put on 25 pounds of solid stage weight muscle in 5 years, who's over 40. It doesn't happen. It never happens. And why do I keep saying over 40? Because when you're young, you haven't been training that long. So you're going to make rapid changes. If you started using gear at 23 and you're 26, then yeah, you're gonna still be seeing some rapid fucking changes. But if you started using gear at 25 and you're 35, are you really gonna put on 25 pounds of solid muscle between 35 and 40? Probably not. And I guarantee you, it would have been easier for you to make $1,000,000 in those 5 years than it would be for you to put on 25 pounds of solid muscle. So that's why I'm so anal about calories in, calories out. If you handle your calories the same way this Ebenezer Scrooge handled his money, you'll grow. Ipso facto, when you try to lose fat, if you handled your calories as stingily as Ebenezer Scrooge handled his money, you will lose fat. The goal is to not lose weight, it's to lose fat. You want to lose fat and preserve your muscle. A pound saved is a pound earned. So it's kind of like I'm going to I'm going to do whatever it takes to gain 10 pounds of muscle, and you gain 20 pounds of fat. Then when you lose that 20 pounds of fat, you end up losing 10 pounds of muscle. You gain shit. You wasted an entire year. You made no progress at all. They don't think like that. They don't realize a pound saved is a pound earned. So you never want to lose muscle, ever, because it's so hard to build it. It's so important. If you gain just 2 pounds a month, one of it's muscle, one of it's fat, for 5 months, you only have to lose 5 pounds. That'll take a week or 2 weeks, maybe, to lose 5 pounds of fat. That's not hard at all. Losing fat's super fucking easy. Even if you played it like really went really easy and barely did anything at all, you could basically screw away a month. You put 5 months into growing, 1 month into maintenance, and 1 month into fat loss, and after 7 months, you put on 5 pounds of muscle. But if you did the other way, and after 5 months, you gained 6.5 pounds of muscle, but 13 pounds of fat, that might take you 4 months to lose all that fat, or 3 months to lose that fat. And after losing 26 pounds of fat or 13 pounds of fat, you'll probably lose some muscle too, because now you're fatigued going into the prep. You just use most of your prep time to shave off the fat you put on the off season just to gain a little bit more muscle. You gain 1.5 pounds more muscle, but instead of having 5 pounds of fat to lose, you had 13.5 pounds of fat to lose. So instead of spending 2 or 3 weeks losing fat, you're spending 3 or 4 months losing fat. That's time you lost. You could have been gaining muscle. It's so important that people get this shit straight. Do not be impatient. And more drugs is not going to create more growth. Once you hit that certain magic threshold that's unique to you right now, not you last year, not you in 5 years, not you 5 years ago, but you right now, and no one knows what that number is. Once you're at that number, that you're growing lean tissue, not just growing fat, you're growing lean tissue, you don't need to use more gear. Here's the algorithm. Here's a trick from John's J3 University. Here's the algorithm. Are you losing fat? Are you gaining weight? Yes or no? If the answer is no, you add calories. If the answer is yes, here's the next question. Is the weight make you look worse? Do you look softer? If the answer is yes, then the calories are enough, but the gear's too low. Or something else isn't in place, like you're not sleeping right, you're not doing your steps, you're not doing your cardio, but assuming you're doing everything right and you're not fucking up in any way, if you're adding calories, but you're getting fatter, it's because you need more gear. So that's when you'd add the gear. So here's the other way the algorithm can go. So, are you gaining weight? No. Add calories. Are you gaining weight? Yes. Is the weight gain fat? Yes. Add gear. Are you gaining weight? Yes. Is the weight you gain fat? Like, are you softer? The answer is no. Or then you're harder. Yes. So are you gaining weight? Yes. Are you harder? Yes. Leave it the fuck alone. So for the past 4 or 5 months, I've been eating the same calories and I really haven't changed my gear. and I slowly but surely am gaining about 1 or 2 pounds a month. About 2 or 3 pounds a month, and it's pretty much solid muscle. I've taken pictures at 204, taken pictures at 216, and that 12 pounds, I do not look fatter. I certainly look more muscular. Does that mean I've gained 0 fat? Probably not. I have probably gained some fat. Is it a visibly noticeable difference? Is it more than 1 or 2% body fat? 2 or 4 pounds? Probably not. So, is some of it water? Probably. It's probably some water. But the point is that's how you use the algorithm. So this video could have been a lot shorter than 40 minutes, but I think I covered a lot of other really important points. Because if I did a video that was just about calories and just about the algorithm, you wouldn't necessarily listen to me. You'd be like, well, that's one opinion. I don't really care what he says. But because I took the time to explain top down versus bottom up thinking, which is seeing the forest, not just the trees. And I gave you an example of how you've been taught in school and why it doesn't work. And then I retaught it again from top down way. I try to appeal to the analyst and approach it from here's the data, but then you'll listen to me versus how a driver thinks, which is I don't give a fuck about the data. Just give me the bottom line. So I gave you the bottom line formula. I gave you the data. I explained top down versus bottom up. I explained how this is dispassionate. We're not using the female or the emotional side of the personality square. We're using just the male side of the personality square, the logical side, which is driver, analyst. We're not dealing with expressive and people pleasing. We're just dealing with driver and analyst. And a lot of people are like, I don't like this gender based, blah, 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 blah. Of course, there are men who are expressive. Of course, there are men that are people pleasers. Of course, there are females that are drivers. And of course, there are females that are analysts. But typically, this is the way it shakes out. That's why I say it that way. That's it. So I'm going to do it one last time. I want to gain weight. How am I going to do that? I'm going to step on the scale every single day and track it in the spreadsheet. I am going to add calories if I'm not growing. If I'm growing, but I look like shit, I'm going to add a tiny bit of gear, maybe 10 milligrams of gear per day. So that's 70 per week because there's 7 days in a week. So that's like that much a day difference if you're using, well, it'd be more like that much a day difference if you're using SIP or Masteron. So instead of going to here and using, let's say, 60 a day, you're going to go to here and use 70 a day. That's it. And that takes 4 weeks to completely kick in. But you will, so that's why you may want, if you're going to be doing it every 2 weeks, you might want to go from 60 right up to 80. That means it's 140 milligram change per week. So at 140 milligram change per week, what you're really doing is front loading the effects of a 70 milligram change per week. So yes, the 140 milligram change would take 4 weeks to see it, but in 1 week at a 20 milligram or 140 milligram increase, it'll be the same as if you waited 4 weeks to see the effects of a 70 milligram increase. So once you know for sure that all you needed was to use 20 milligrams a day difference, then you won't be encouraged due to emotions to use more in the future. So it's like, okay, I'm trying to gain weight. I'm not growing. I'm going to add in 250 more calories per day. Okay, I'm growing super slow. I can't really detect there being a change. I want it to happen faster. Too fucking bad. All right, you wait 2 weeks. Okay, I'm up 1 pound on average because I've taken all 14 days and compiled the average. I've taken the original point, and then I've taken the end point, and they're almost the same. I can't really tell. Well, you take these 7 days and you average them, and you take these 7 days and average them, and then you compare to the previous average, and it should be, 210, 210.5, 211. The individual days, you might be up 2, 3, 4 pounds or down 2 or 3, 4 pounds. Depends how much you slept. It depends on if you had extra sodium. Depends how hot it was that day. but taking weekly averages helps you calculate if you're really making progress or not. So if you're growing, great. Are you losing your lines? Are you losing your abs? Is your weight belt feeling tighter and tighter? Are you on a new loop? You're probably gaining fat, means you got to go up on the gear. You could go up one tick on this thing, go up 20 milligrams a day, whether it's test or master on, it makes a difference. So, but that's a whole nother video. So you go up 20 milligrams a day, then you wait another 2 weeks, and now you're up another pound, but you don't look fatter. You're the same. Great. So you found the right gear load. You've got the right calories, you've got the right gear load. You should leave it the fuck alone until you stop gaining weight. After 2 weeks of no growth, you can add in another 250 calories in the form of 50 to 60 carbs. And that's it. That's all you got to do is add in a little bit more carbs. Think about it, 50 carbs in 5 meals, that's 10 carbs per meal. That's not a lot. That's like 30 grams of rice. That's like a third of a cup of rice. It's like a fifth, 30, 150. It's a fifth of a cup of rice. It is not a big change. So you're going up a tiny change, a quarter cup of rice or a fifth of a cup of rice every 2 weeks and maybe adding 20 milligrams of gear every 2 weeks. So every week you're technically adding a little bit of carbs or a little bit of gear until you're at the point where you're growing. And as you're growing, you're not getting softer, you're getting harder. Then you leave it the fuck alone. And that's all you have to do to grow. Now, if any of this was confusing, this is what I do for a living, and I've been doing it for 15 years. Not only am I a pro bodybuilder, I'm also a medical doctor and a biochemist. What's biochemistry? Nutrition is a very small section of biochemistry. Biochemistry is the discipline that is the heart of nutrition, of physiology, of pharmacology, and of course, endocrinology and anabolic pharmacology. So I'm uniquely suited to help you reach your goals. I will provide you spreadsheets written by Dr. Karina Dodson, who's a acclaimed university professor and researcher, and she is a data scientist by trade. So she is an expert at evaluating data. So she knows how to make the data collection tools for her to analyze the data and come up with the ability to predict the future. Like she literally can read the past and see the future based off of numbers, like Neo in the Matrix. I'm pretty good at it. She's better. That's what we do is we give you spreadsheets, you fill out those spreadsheets, and we will be able to figure out how much more food you need, how much more gear, etc., how much medication, if there's a certain medication you're missing for purposes of growth, whether you're having heartburn or digestive issues, she can fix that. And likewise, it's even more of a streamlined process for losing fat. And I have algorithms in place to know when to deploy certain tools to propel you down the fat loss algorithm. It is much easier to lose fat than build muscle, but it is much more complicated to explain it to someone than it is to explain. It's very easy to explain the science and the formulas for how to build muscle. It's harder to execute. It's easy to execute the fat loss protocols. It's difficult to explain it to someone why it works better in a certain way. But that is the purpose of another video. So go to the description box, click the link, set up a consult, and let's get started on helping you grow some muscle. Hopefully you found this useful. Of course, check the other videos because all the food in the world and all the gear in the world is not going to help you if you don't lift right. And everyone thinks they lift right. Let me ask you this. How many people do you know that think they're stupid? How many people do you know that think they're smart? It's a lot more people think they're smart than stupid, right? Okay. By definition, there is just as many dumb people as there are smart people. That 49% of the population is below average intelligence and 49% of the population is above average intelligence. Yet it's probably for every one person you know who thinks is stupid, there's 10 people that thinks they're smart. It's the same way with training. Times 100. There's probably like 1% of people train right, and 99% of people think they train right and don't. So make sure to watch the training videos. I make it really fucking simple. Hopefully this was simple. I know it was wordy, but I did that intentionally to get the point across That's why I say it 3 times and I say it different ways, is I'm trying to get through to not just you, I'm trying to get through to all 2 or 3,000 of you, because every one of you has to hear it a different way. That's why I take so long to say the same shit. Hopefully, even though this was a long video, it had other pieces of information that weren't directly related to calories that you found helpful. All right, guys, it's been fun. It's been real. It's been real fun. I will see you next time. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's so fucking dumb that they say that calories in, calories out doesn't work.